there's an easy way to describe what animals need that even a 4, 5, 6-year-old child can understand, which means obviously that then politicians can understand that too, and so can people in academia and the media. And those 4 things are a little bit different than what we usually hear, because when you ask somebody, what do animals need? They say food, water, shelter. And if you ask little kids, they'll say air. And, well, yeah, that's kind of obvious. But I think there's more, because it's not a long life that's required by animals or by us, it's a good life. So what makes a good life beyond those basic necessities of life? Well, there's 4 things that all animals need. And the first one I'm using this slide to illustrate. And that first thing is space. Because it doesn't matter if we look at animals in the zoo, animals in the farm, animals in the pet store, and animals in most of our homes, they don't have enough space. The space that they're actually allocated is orders of magnitude smaller than they would experience in the wild. And a polar bear is a good example. The smallest home range for a polar bear known in the wild is about 2,300 square kilometers, and that's the Beaufort Sea polar bears that live along the coast. The biggest home range is about 599,000 square kilometers, the pack ice bears, that's bigger than the province of Manitoba. The biggest space allocated to a polar bear in captivity is 4 million times smaller than their smallest known home range in the wild. Well, that might seem like an extreme example, but we can look all through our society and see similar examples of this kind of thing happening. It happens time and time again, and so many of us ignore it and don't think about space. And I think space is one of the core considerations that all animals need to have addressed. And the simple rule, the very simple rule that anybody can remember when it comes to space, the bigger the better. For every animal, from a dung beetle to a whale, the bigger the better, because it's far better for an animal to have way more space than it needs and not use it than to need more space and not have it, because there's no downside to giving an animal more space, but there's a big downside to not giving an animal enough space. So space is the first thing, and every 4-year-old understands this. Unfortunately, the people in the zoo world and the farm world and all the rest of them don't understand it. So maybe we should have 4-year-olds serving as their technical advisors. Anyhow, the second thing that all animals need is freedom. And by freedom, I don't mean that we go home and we take Charlie the goldfish and we dump him in Lake Winnipeg and say, here you go, Charlie, have a good life. What I mean is freedom of choice, because giving an animal an ability to make a meaningful contribution to the quality of its own life involves choice. It can get up, it can do things, it can make decisions. They can be small micro decisions, they can be big decisions, and we see this all the time in the wild. An animal may decide to go around the rock this way, around the rock that way. It may decide to sit in the sun to thermoregulate in another way. It may be big decisions, like cultural decisions that elephants make on where to find water in a drought and things like this. They make all kinds of decisions, and that's how they make a contribution to the quality of their own lives. And we restrict or eliminate that ability for most animals. And this slide illustrates it. I showed it at McNally Robinson on the weekend, and I think this illustrates freedom because it shows a wolf, and the backstory to this slide, actually, I'll very quickly tell you, is a friend of mine who's a wolf fanatic, always wanted to see a wolf, took a canoe trip up in the Yukon, paddling along in her canoe, turns the river, wow, there's this beautiful Arctic wolf, and she took this photo. And I say to little kids, can the wolf run along the shore? Yes. Can the wolf go back over the hill? Yes. Can the wolf turn around and go this way? Yes. Could the wolf, if it had a den 10 kilometers away, run back? You know, the wolf has choice, an ability to make a meaningful contribution to the quality of its own life. So that's what I mean by freedom. So the second thing is freedom.